pretty freaking quick.
Guys, welcome to what might be the most highly anticipated, most highly demanded, most universally loved car in the world right now. At least it is up there as one of them. And surprisingly, it's a Toyota Corolla. Now, I'm not gonna sit here and lie to you guys that I've been super excited about driving Toyotas, that I'm a big Toyota guy, because if you guys have watched my channel before, you know that's not typically the type of cars that I drive. However, I remember about a year ago, everybody started talking about the Yaris GR, and I thought that was a very cool concept of a car. Sadly, we never actually got that here in Canada or in the US either. So instead, we got this, which is the Corolla GR. Now, this thing's a little bit heavier, a little bit bigger, but it's also a little bit more powerful. Instead of 270 horsepower, this one has about 300 horsepower out of just a 1.6 liter 3-cylinder. So in addition to the 3-cylinder that produces 300 horsepower, you can see differences on this car. You can visually see the wide body, the different grille. This car just looks a lot more aggressive than the regular Corolla. You can clearly tell something is up with this. So realistically, anybody can take a Corolla, modify it, do whatever, get it up to about 300 horsepower, but that's not really going to be a great car. You're going to have a front-wheel drive car with a ton of power that can't really put it down in most cases. But what Toyota did, and the reason this car costs almost 50,000 Canadian dollars, close to 40,000 US dollars, is they fit it with an all-wheel drive system. So what that does, that causes you to be able to take that 300 horsepower and put it to the ground with absolutely no problems. This car handles like an absolute go-kart, and it's absolutely tiny. So this car really weighs nothing, can easily put the power down. This is usable power. You can tell this thing was meant to be with 300 horsepower. They did do something, however, that I really like. So you'd think because they put the all-wheel drive and the 300 horsepower, this car is meant for just track times, nothing else. They just want to make a car as fast as possible. Well, that's not the case. So the one thing I don't really like with cars like the Golf R, which might be the main competitor for this car, is that they kind of focus on the dual clutch transmission. Not a lot of people are buying the manuals. And honestly, if you've driven a manual Golf R, they're not very good. You probably would want to get the dual clutch. But in this car, what they did is they fitted it with a manual only option. So you could not get this car in automatic. This car is meant to be driver involved. This car is meant to be fun. So obviously this is meant to be a practical four-door car. So I am sitting in the back to kind of test out the space in the back. Honestly, with the way I drive and the way I sit, it's okay, it's doable, but I'm not the tallest guy. So probably if you're over 6 feet, it's gonna be a little tough to fit someone in the back and the front of this car, but it's not the worst thing in the world. And understandably, because this is a performance car, it's not a luxury car, there really isn't much to the back seats here. There's really nothing here at all. Nothing that feels too fancy. It's pretty much just seats. Speaking of practicality, this trunk is not huge. It's doable, but this is very high up. And what they did is underneath, they actually put the battery right here instead of in the front where a normal Corolla battery is, to even out the weight distribution. So you have, you know, a heavy battery in the back. Okay, so now we're gonna go get in the Corolla. We're gonna drive it. I'm gonna see if it's as good of a daily driver as everybody says, if it's worth the hype. I've done it a little bit so far, and I gotta say I'm pretty impressed, but there's a lot more to talk about. Okay, so now we're gonna drive the Corolla GR, and there is a very big problem with this car that I have, but before I get into that and before I tell you about that, we're near a really good stretch of road. Let's go drive this car. Let me tell you about the good things before I tell you about the bad thing, because this car is truly incredible to drive. So we're getting on the good stretch of road right now, and top of third. Now going down a huge downhill. This car is so light. It feels like a freaking go-kart. It feels like there's absolutely no weight in front of you. I mean, this thing would probably be doing better on a little windy road than most supercars because it's that agile, and it is quick. You still get a ton of power between the corners. Suspension is definitely stiff. But honestly, I say this all the time, I'm a big fan of cars that are not comfortable. You know, with a sports car, I want it to always feel purpose-built. Even though this is, you know, a daily somewhat. If you want a comfortable daily, buy a Golf R. Or, you know, but this is a daily for someone who wants to truly have fun with every drive they go on. You know, they don't make the Focus RS anymore. That would probably be the closest thing to this, kind of driving wise, and just the whole concept of what the car is. Because what you get here is you get a ton of money that was put into engineering with an all-wheel drive system, 300 horsepower out of a tiny engine that honestly, there's not that much lag with that turbocharger. But when you're inside, you know, I can't say this is a very nice car to be in. You have these nice buckety seats that do feel pretty good. The steering wheel feels pretty good, But other than that, you know, the door just feels like plastic kind of. You know you're in a Corolla. You don't suddenly think you're in some $100,000 car or in anything too special. It is a Corolla that was made to just increase the joy of driving every day. But the price-wise, you know, it's not bad. This thing is just under $50,000 Canadian, $40,000 US. That's the same price as, you know, most SUVs you buy. If you're buying a Ford Edge or anything like that as a daily. So if you don't really need the space and you want to just have a little bit more fun, you're better off getting this. You're going to have a ton more fun. And this thing's going to hold its value very, very, very well. So other than the interior feeling a little bit cheap, I do like that they did brand absolutely everything with GR. So you do know you're not a regular Corolla. This at no point will feel like a regular Corolla. It's just the materials are on that same level, which I wish they could just kind of even that out and maybe give us like nicer door panels or something that, I don't know, you're just gonna be a little happier with this, because I feel like in 15 years time, this is gonna seem as old and outdated as a 15-year-old Corolla if you get into it now. But for now, I honestly think this is one of the best cars on the market. Now, before we get into talking about any of the value-wise, money-wise, any of that, I gotta say, mechanically, the car feels awesome. It doesn't feel like it's gonna break. It doesn't feel like this was just made kind of, you know, out of parts that they had laying around. This thing was actually made properly well to be a sports car. They used whatever engineering they had to make this as enjoyable as possible, and it feels high quality. The shifter feels really, really good. Feels very kind of notchy, it's not loose at all. Honestly, to me, this kind of feels better than most BMW shifters. Steering is very direct, and because the steering wheel is kind of wrapped in this, I don't know if it's leather, but whatever it is, it feels high quality. Just kind of what you touch feels a little bit better. You get this digital cluster right here, which when you switch to sport mode, you can see the rev range. It kind of stretches out after 4,000, but you know, you can be cruising at 4,000 RPM. It'll make you think you're at like 2,000, which is nice because sometimes you don't want to think about that too much. You want to really be at a higher up point in the rev range, and that also kind of helps you be more on the power and the turbo not lagging as much because you're going to be at a higher RPM to begin with. The one thing I do really like that they have is there's this button right here onto the left of the steering wheel. It says IMT on it. I think it stands for Intelligent Manual Transmission. What that does is it just activates auto rev match, which most sports cars nowadays have it. This one, it's good. It's not as good as like the Porsche ones or the Mustang ones, but it's probably on the same level as a lot of other sports cars that are not too expensive. And again, it's up to you if you want to use it or not. It's going to feel more engaging if you don't use it in your rev match yourself, but if you want to track this thing, that auto rev match is really, really, really going to help you. But yeah, like I was saying before, you don't get too much comfort features in this car. There's not, you know, this is the core version. There's no heated steering wheel on this one. I know on the higher up trims you do get that. You do have heated seats here though, but just everything here feels a little bit cheap. You get this big screen, but again, it's just a screen. Every car has a screen now. It's nothing fancy. The only thing here I think is high quality is this digital cluster, which what it does show you is, you know, the RPMs, all that, your typical stuff, but there's two things on there that are very interesting. One is the drive modes that I told you guys about. It's weird that there's an eco mode and a normal mode, but only one sport mode. There's no track mode or anything like that. But here in the middle, you have this little circle that you can twist to either side. What that does is it actually helps you control with the all-wheel drive system how much power you want going to the front or the back. You can either have it 60-40 or you can have it 30-70. Or if you press the center of the circle button, it actually puts you in track mode, which automatically puts the car into 50-50 power distribution to the back and front wheels. Now, not that I would use it because this is not my car and I'm definitely not going to do something like this in a car that's not mine, but there is an actual handbrake in this car. This is not a button handbrake like the new Golfs have or even the old ones do, I think. So you do still get a more feeling with just everything. You know, you park the car, pull up the handbrake. Just a lot more satisfying of a feeling than a lot of the modern hot hatchbacks. Now, visibility is pretty good. It's a Toyota Corolla. You know, they gotta be somewhat of a normal car. Trunk space is decent. Overall, this is honestly a pretty good daily. If you're trying to buy a sedan or something, this is a lot more practical. Price is not too bad. But here is my one issue with this car. Because of how good this car is and how much it makes sense financially and the value you get for the car, these are sold out for years to come. You can't get one of these. You have to be a VIP to get a Corolla. This is something that I don't think we've ever seen before. Usually for cars that have waiting lists like this, we're talking GT3s, GT4s, cars that truly are expensive, and the manufacturers do have somewhat of a VIP clientele. I've never seen a Toyota Corolla that you have to be a somebody to get, but this is what this is. Now, I'm not too sure what these things are going for over sticker, but I'm sure it's a solid amount over sticker because this is the most hyped car on the market right now, possibly. I'm sure you can get at least 10, 20,000 over sticker for a car like this. And it doesn't make sense because the whole point of this car, why this car is so good, is because of the price point. If you can't get this car for the price point that it is, you know, if you have to pay $60,000, $70,000, you could probably get something better. So the issue that I have with this car is everybody talks about it and everybody says how good it is, but the other conversation that everybody has is you can't get one. If you can't get one, what's the whole point of this car now? So the one thing I have been hearing is that Toyota is about to increase production on this car, which will make a ton of sense because honestly, they got to be able to sell as many as they can make. I don't think they're ever going to run out of people wanting to buy these cars. I think if they flood showrooms with these cars, they're all going to get sold out immediately. There's a ton of kids that are, you know, buying the new Nissan 400Ds, or they're buying even Golf GTIs. This is not that far off the price of a Golf GTI. And this is just way better of a car than that. So the issue I have with the car is that you can't really buy it. But the thing I really like about it is that it's the best value for money if you can. So, you know, do what you will with that information, but hopefully the car market goes back to normal and Toyota starts making a good amount of these cars. So the one thing that I heard, which I don't know if it's true or not, I actually heard this when I was doing some research on the car. I was watching the Straight Pipes video. Those guys do amazing reviews. But they were saying that the audio from the exhaust doesn't really get pumped into the speakers. I don't know if that's true or not, because I know most of these newer cars with smaller engines, it gets pumped into the speakers from the interior. So you kind of feel like the car is louder than it is. But this one is loud on the outside. It's not overly loud. I would probably still get some sort of exhaust on this, and I think it will make it a lot more fun. But you can hear this 3-cylinder. You would think a 3-cylinder turbo would just be muffled and you can't hear anything, especially once you put this car in sport mode. You can really hear this thing rev, and it does not sound bad at all. I honestly have no complaints over the way the car sounds. It's quiet if you just want to drive normally, but when you want to push it a little bit, like, you're gonna know you're in a performance car. Okay, so let's go on the highway. I want to see how this thing pulls, because honestly I haven't really got an opportunity to just push it in a straight line. I want to see what these 300 horsepower feel like. We might be a little screwed. There's a Dodge Caravan in front of us. I'm gonna give it a little bit of room, and let's go. This thing is freaking quick. It's not supercar quick. I can't say that that's what it is, but it's definitely sports car quick. This would give a good run to like an STI, Type R, probably the new 400Z. This is a fun car. So in conclusion, if you're able to get an allocation for a GR Corolla, you pretty much 100% have to do it. You cannot pass up on a car like this. Honestly, value for money, there's not really much like it. One of the most fun cars I've driven in a while. So if you can one, please do everybody a service and get one. If not, then as soon as they start pumping out more cars, you should probably consider one as a daily.